When it comes to Henry Miller, people often recall scandals, the bans on his books, the bold scenes, the freedom of thought. But few know, behind the mask of the provocative writer hid a man who spent his whole life searching for the answer to a single question: what awaits us after the final breath? Miller did not merely reflect on this. He believed that one day, in special moments, the veil between worlds becomes thinner, and it is exactly then that one can hear a call, not loud, almost inaudible, but absolutely real. In his letters, which were never published during his lifetime, Miller describes strange experiences, something he himself called a touch from the other side. And the more you read these lines, the more clearly you feel this is not fantasy. This is the confession of a man who dared to look where we are afraid to glance. In one of the letters addressed to a friend in Paris, he wrote, "One night I woke up from the sensation that someone was calling me, not with a voice, with a thought. I got up, went to the window. The sky was black, like covered with heavy fabric. But in that darkness I saw light, not the light of a lamp or the moon, but some inner light emanating from the darkness itself. Do you feel it? As if the room becomes quieter, as if the very air holds its breath so as not to miss a single word." Miller spoke of borderline states, moments between sleep and wakefulness, between life and death. He claimed it is precisely then that a person can come into contact with the truth about themselves. "Our names, fears, ambitions," he wrote, "are merely masks. Remove them, and you are left face to face with who you have always been, even before birth." But the most amazing thing in these letters is not the description of mystical sensations. No, the real chill runs down your spine when Miller shares his discovery. The otherworldly reality is not something external. It is within us. "I understood," he wrote, "that death does not take us to unknown distances. It reveals what has always been near, but remained unnoticed. And here a strange feeling arises, as if someone is opening a door for you, just a little, just enough to peek through the crack, and you see. But what exactly depends on you. Do you want to know what Miller saw when he took a step beyond that door? Do you want to feel what he felt at the moment when the boundary between worlds became as transparent as breath on glass? Then keep reading. From here, it only goes deeper. On another night, which Miller called the strangest in his life, he experienced something that is difficult to describe with words. He wrote, "I woke up from the sensation that someone was calling me not from the outside, but from within, and not with a voice, with the heart." He got up, slowly walked to the table, lit the lamp, and suddenly realized that the light did not disperse the darkness. It seemed to thicken in the corners of the room, living its own life. Miller knew this was not a hallucination. This was an invitation. He describes, "I closed my eyes and saw a corridor, narrow, stretching into infinity, and at the end of the corridor, light, warm, beckoning. But between me and the light, thousands of my fears, regrets, resentments. They stood like a wall, not letting me pass. Do you feel it?" As if the echo of these words touches something deep inside. As if what he speaks about resonates within the very heart. Miller wrote, "I realized, in order to pass there, you must leave everything that holds you here. Attachments, masks, illusions. Only then can you enter the true home." But he was not ready. Then on that night he remained at the threshold, and for the rest of his life he tried to find that door again. Sometimes he managed to get close to it in his books. In Tropic of Cancer, in Black Spring, in Sexus, everywhere between the lines flicker hints, secret signs for those who know how to read, not with the eyes, but with the soul. One day Miller wrote in his diary, "Life is a dream in which we are afraid to wake up, and death is the morning." He did not deny the fear of death. On the contrary, he confessed, "I am not afraid of the end. I am afraid of living in vain." Do you feel how his words touch something alive within you, as if he is not writing about himself? He is writing about each of us. But the most frightening thing is what he spoke about only in his final letters. He wrote that beyond the boundary there is not only light. "I saw shadows," Miller confessed, "entities resembling our fears, doubts, anger. They were alive. They clung to those who were afraid to leave." What was it? Hallucinations, symbols of the subconscious, or a real reflection of what awaits us beyond? He warned, "The one who leaves with hatred in their heart will not find the light. They will wander among their own nightmares until they are freed." And here arises the question that sends shivers down the spine. What are we preparing for? Miller believed the preparation for the transition begins here and now, every day, with every thought, every choice. And if you have read up to this point, perhaps it was you he was trying to reach. But the most important revelation of Henry Miller is still ahead. Do you want to know what he saw at the moment when he almost crossed the boundary? Then do not stop. The most sacred lies ahead. In his final letters, which remained unpublished during his lifetime, Miller described what many would be afraid even to think about. At one of the moments, he wrote, "I realized I was already halfway there, and if I allowed myself to take one more step, I would not be able to return." He describes a strange feeling, as if everything around, walls, clocks, the lamp, became transparent, weightless. Reality, familiar, tangible, blurred like a mirage on a scorched road. "I did not see with my eyes," he recalled. "I felt everything at once. I was the tree, the wind, the river. I was the thought and its echo." And at that moment, he was offered a choice. A voice, not a voice, rather an understanding. He asked, "Are you ready to leave everything? Everything you knew, everything you loved, everything you were afraid to lose?" Do you feel this trembling moment, as if you are standing at the edge of an abyss and below out not death but something much greater? Miller hesitated, and he honestly admitted, "I got scared. I was not ready. I loved life too much, even in its ugliness, in its pain, in its imperfection." And so he returned. But he returned different. After that, he wrote, "I could no longer live as before. Everything that seemed important turned out to be empty. Everything that was considered a loss turned out to be a liberation." He wrote about strange dreams in which images filled with light, but without faces, came to him. He spoke about rewritten memories, when certain events from the past began to sound different, as if someone changed their meaning. And always, the feeling, someone is watching, someone is waiting, someone is reminding. In one of his last letters, he coined a phrase that only strengthens its impact with the years. "We are not asked who we were. We are asked whether we became ourselves." Do you hear this challenge? It echoes across decades, across death, across fear. Have we become ourselves? Miller believed every act, every thought forms not just character, it forms the soul. It builds the very home that one day we will have to enter. And if the home is empty, if it is filled only with resentment, anger, regrets, then the transition will be long and painful. But if the home is built of love, acceptance, honesty, then the road will be short, and the light that he saw at the end of the corridor will turn out not to be something external, but a continuation of ourselves. And now the question stands before everyone. What kind of home are we building? Do you want to know what else Miller was hiding? what he tried to convey through his deepest experiences? Then keep reading, for ahead lies the most unexpected. One of the strangest confessions of Miller is hidden in his last notebook, found only after his death. There, among sprawling, sometimes almost illegible lines, he left a note that seemed to be addressed, not to people. "I know you are listening," he wrote. "I feel your presence when the night becomes especially dark and the silence presses against my temples. You do not demand prayers, you wait for awareness. Who are you? Whom was he speaking about? Angels, entities beyond the veil, himself in another form?" This note seems to whisper, there is someone or something that watches over us without interfering, without judging, simply waiting for us to become who we were meant to be. Miller wrote, "In the darkest nights I felt, if I dropped everything, if I stopped clinging to fears, I would hear their voices, not words, vibration, a melody familiar to me, even before birth." Have you ever felt something like that? That strange recognition of something you have never been taught, but have always known? This is exactly what Miller spoke about. He believed that after death, we do not go somewhere far away. We return to ourselves, to that part of ourselves we forgot in the whirlwind of earthly bustle. The greatest tragedy of man, he wrote, is not that he dies, it is that he lives his life without ever remembering who he is. Do you feel how this resonates? As if an invisible hand touches your heart, but Miller warned, do not expect an instant revelation. The path to your true self is a path through fear, through pain, through the acceptance of your own darkness. We are not afraid of death, he wrote. We are afraid to see ourselves as we truly are. And therefore, he asserted, most people after death linger in a strange, intermediate state, a world of mirrors where their unfinished fears and regrets are reflected. They walk in circles, Miller wrote, repeating their earthly mistakes until they dare to look themselves in the face without excuses. But for those who dare, something incredible will open. Beyond the veil there is no punishment, no judgment. There is only you, the true you, and you must embrace yourself as you have become. And now imagine, if today, right now, at this very minute, you had to meet yourself, would you recognize the one standing before you? Would you be able to look into their eyes, without shame, without fear? Miller posed exactly this question, and he demanded the answer not from others, but from himself. And maybe that is why his texts are still alive, because they strike not the mind, they strike the very heart. But he left one more final, most mysterious note, and it is in it that the key is hidden to everything he kept silent about his whole life. Do you want to know what this secret is? Then let's go further. The final step lies ahead. In the final pages of his notebook, already written in an almost trembling hand, Henry Miller wrote something that remained misunderstood even by his closest ones for a long time. Truth, he wrote, is not in knowledge. Truth is in experience. These words seem simple, but behind them, an abyss. Miller continued, I searched for truth in books, in women, in wine, in suffering and joy, but only there at the border of life and death did I understand. Truth is a meeting with oneself, without a name, without a role, without excuses. He describes that once in deep meditation, or perhaps in a state between sleep and wakefulness, he found himself in a space where there was neither time nor forms, only the feeling of presence. There are no questions there. There is no fear. There is only I and light. And then he was given the most important choice, not to return or to stay, not to leave forever, but to become oneself. You can stay here, the space seemed to whisper. if you let go of everything. And Miller, as he himself admitted, realized he was not ready yet. He still wanted to tell people about what he had seen. He wanted to leave a trace. He wanted to warn. Therefore, he returned. But he returned not just as a man. He returned as a messenger. He began to write differently. Even his most earthly books are full of hints of this experience, for those who know how to read between the lines. Every touch, every pain, every breath is a path home, he wrote. And in his final note on an almost faded sheet of paper, he left a message, not a declaration, not an instruction, but a question. When your hour comes, will you recognize yourself? Or will you find yourself a stranger in your own home? Do you feel how this question gets stuck somewhere inside? As if someone handed you a mirror, but you are afraid to look into it. Miller did not give an answer. He could not. We must answer ourselves. And now, after you have read all this, ask yourself honestly, and if right now, at this very second, a quiet call came from beyond the veil, would you be ready to answer? Because in the end, as Henry Miller wrote, we are not bodies, not stories, not fears. We are sparks of eternal light who came to experience, to remember, and to return. And perhaps right now, reading these lines, you too feel someone is quietly watching and waiting. Do not be afraid. Beyond the veil, there is no end. There is the return home. But the path there begins here, now, with you. If these words stirred something inside you, if you felt a slight tremor, as if someone quietly called to you from the other side of familiar life, do not leave it unanswered. Leave a like, not just as a sign of approval, but as an invisible signal to those who are also searching. And leave a comment. Write what you felt, or simply leave a sign, a candle, a heart, the word here, so that those who come after will know they are not alone. Because the path to oneself begins with one simple step, a step toward each other. And remember, sometimes one word from you can become that very light at the end of the corridor for someone. Do not be afraid to be that light.